Now, a lot of people don't realise there's another thing you can do with these saws. Hi everybody, it's Monday, Machine Monday, and today we're going to be talking about radial arm saws. This is basically one step up from a mitre saw. So first we're going to look at the capabilities of a radial arm saw. Now, it's important to remember, wherever you're watching this video, whichever country, or depending on how many people you employ or if you work alone, it's always important to make sure you sort of conform to any safety regulations. These saws can be very dangerous if you don't use them properly. I know you can go and buy one of these things and use it in your garage at home, but if you're employing people and letting other people use this saw, it is important to make sure you check and comply with any safety regulations in your country or in your sort of situation. Right, let's have a look at what this saw can do. So basically, a radial arm saw is a saw that works like this. This is the radial arm. This one will cut about 12 inches wide and around about 60mm thick, so it's comfortable cutting 2-inch or 50mm timber. But I have got a bigger Woodworking over the back there, but this one I do tend to use for smaller stuff, and like I say, it's basically one step up from a mitre saw, so you wouldn't take something like this really out on site. It's really for inside a workshop. So it cross cuts like that, so as I say, cut straight cuts. You can also, if you want to, just go wind the blade up, you have got an height adjustment on it. So that's lifting the blade up. So it's ideal for doing things like halving joints and things like that, and sort of housing joints and things. You can slacken these off and you can move it to any angle you want. Something. If you want sort of a skating board or a dado or anything like that, cutting on an angle, it's very handy for that. It has got pre-selected locks, so it locks at 90 and it also locks at 45, so that's handy, saves you guessing whereabouts you want it locking. Not only that, you can actually tilt the saw, so if you slacken this lever off here, you can actually tilt the saw like that, and it's got the degrees on here on the front on a chart, so you can set it to cut angles that way as well. So if you're cutting something like wide and flat, you can tip it that way, so you don't have to stand it up. So that's that one. Now, a lot of people don't realise there's another thing you can do with these saws that a lot of people don't realise. You can actually use them for ripping. I don't think it's brilliant for ripping, but if you're sort of on your own and you're working in your garage and you need some way of ripping down, you can actually do it on these. So the way to do this is, if you just lock this lever, that'll hold the saw from returning. Then you can slacken this lever off here. There's also a button you press in on this side, like that, and then you can rotate the saw and it will lock like that on 90 degrees. Then what you can actually do is slacken this lever off as I tightened earlier, and you can move it to any point up against your fence, so that then you can lock it, and then you can lower the blade. I'm not going to do it now because I don't use it for ripping. I don't want to damage the bench anymore. I need to, but you can actually lower the blade till it's just touching the bed, and then you can rip. If you wanted to rip a sheet material into strips, it's ideal for that. So if you hadn't got a table saw, it is a handy tip if you want to do some ripping. Put that back. Right, talk a bit about safety now. On a radial arm saw, it is actually a legal requirement that you do have some sort of recoil on it if you are employing people. As I say, you need to check things. Rules and regulations vary from area to area, so it is important you check on your area and your situation, how many people you're employing, etc. Buy these. Some saws possibly will come with this recoil wire, which just goes to a recoil there, but this one didn't, because they just don't, these smaller machines don't tend to come with them fitted, but you can buy those for probably about 30-40 pounds, and you can fit one, and as long as it's got some sort of recoil to take the saw back, then that's fine. That'll pass regulations for me. So as I say, just make sure you check for yourself. If you're using a radial arm saw, what people don't realise when you've not used one before is they think they've got to really pull the saw hard across your wood, and you haven't. What you will find with any radial arm saw is, and this even applies to a biter saw that has got a draw feature on it, is you'll find the saw, because the blade's travelling towards you, it'll be trying to race towards you, and you will actually tend more to actually have to hold the saw back rather than pull it towards you. You will, of course, pull it towards you, but only very slightly, but you've always got to sort of be ready in case the saw, sometimes you'll find they'll snatch, and especially if you're going through a knot or a bit of case hardened grain on the timber or anything, you'll start to come and then the saw will snatch like that towards you. So you've always got to be ready for that, and you've always got to anticipate that, because if you don't, it will catch you out. So as I say, if I was you, if you brought one of these machines and you haven't used one before, just play about with small bits of timber before you race in and cut some big lumps of timber, because it's usually cutting the big lumps where you'll get the shock, where it'll, you know, try and race forward. Now the bench, this one I've constructed out of a piece of weight top I'd had, and then I've put a batten across the back. Now when you put these battens on, it's also a good idea not to put any screws in if you can, but if you have to put odd screw in, put the screws in and make sure you glue it down, because what happens is you'll do a straight cut and then an angle cut here, and this piece here you'll end up with loads of screws about, and then you're very likely one day you're just going to cut through a screw. So I find it easy if you can screw it on temporary with some glue underneath it. As soon as the glue's gone off, take all your screws out, and then just make sure your glue's got it well. It doesn't matter if you leave screws in over here, well away from the blade, but around this blade area, I would take the screws out if I was you, and just make sure the glue's got it. If you notice it's coming loose, sort it out immediately, because if you don't, it can be very dangerous. And when you're cutting with a radial arm saw, always make sure you've got your timber back to this fence. Don't get into the habit of holding timber up here and cutting it, because you will find it'll snatch the wood, and that's how you're going to end up having an accident if you're not careful. You will find that, especially in places where you employ people, you'll find the regulations state you've got to have an area here which is painted red, and the idea of that is so that you never have your hands in the red area. So you always have, if you're holding the timber, you hold it over here, well away from the blade. This blade's cutting straight, it only cuts from front to back. In either way, it only cuts from front to back. So if your hand's not in that line that it cuts, it's virtually impossible to cut yourself, because your hands are nowhere near the blade. Don't get into the habit of putting your fingers close to the blade while you're cutting, because there's always that likelihood it could snatch the wood and pull your hand into the blade. So keep your hands well away from the blade. You should never have any reason to put your hands near the blade of a radial arm saw. Always keep well away from the blade, and just remember, these machines can be dangerous, so be careful when you're using them. If you haven't got to use them, I would stay well clear, and if you're not sort of really confident using them, my advice would be let somebody else do it who is confident. They're not things to be played with, machines, and if you're not careful, they will punish you. And loads of these on the market, so have a look round if you do want to put one in your workshop. These little DeWalt ones are a perfect starter radial arm saw, and as I say, they're one step up from a mitre saw. Really handy bit of kit. Now you might even step up to having something like a big Woodworking bra or something like that in your workshop. So if you need any more advice about the radial arm saw, or if I've got lots of contacts if you want to purchase one of these, drop me a message, and I'll help you best I can. And I hope to see you soon for another Machine Monday, next Monday. Now I just want to say thanks for watching the video, but any advice I give out for machinery is only sort of advisory. It's always important to check your health and safety regulations in your area, in your country, and it also depends how many people you're employing, etc. So it's always important, if you're not sure on the regulations in your area, please check with your local authority and make sure you follow any instruction manual that comes with your machine. And if you're not sure, don't use the machine until you are sure.